It's the year 2093 in futuristic Japan, where monsters of unknown origin appear out of nowhere and terrorize humanity. At the same time, global crime rates reach an all-time high amidst the chaos. Humans had no effective method of defeating the monsters, and governments worldwide got spread thin trying to deal with all problems. Finally, in 2095, humanity's first superhero emerged like a beacon of hope. He single-handedly crushed countless monsters, including the Monster King, and cleared the streets of just as many supervillains. This noble superhuman, shrouded in a cloak, was named Zero. He shared his knowledge with the world and raised a bunch of superheroes to fight evil like him. By 2100, humanity was no longer in crisis and peace returned to a civilian's life. However, humanity's heroic savior suddenly disappeared. It's been 5 years since Zero's disappearance, and nobody knows where he is and what he's up to. Zero's real identity is Lin Ji, a seemingly ordinary guy who's been kicked out of the house by his sister for being unemployed. His own sister, Wan, doesn't know he's Zero. With nowhere to go, Lin aimlessly wanders around the city and stumbles into a Shi-Shen clan concert. This clan is a multi-talented group consisting of young men who can fight crime with superpowers and make boyband music that teen girls die for. Suddenly, a gun from the crowd shoots a bullet and narrowly misses the lead singer's head. The offender reveals himself to be Lord Blackhand, a C-rank supervillain who's come to make the boys pay for beating up some of his guys. Everybody in the crowd tries to escape as Blackhand's goons take aim at the Shi-Shen clan members. The long-haired lead signer disarms them with his powers, forcing them to fight with their bare hands. The other members deal with the goons while the lead faces Lord Blackhand himself. He dodges all the Lord's punches and easily finishes the fight with a blow to the Lord's stomach. The Lord and his goons are about to retreat when Lin shackles Lord Blackhand's leg with a cuff and says the authorities will come to arrest them soon. This unexpected arrest enrages Lord Blackhand. You see, he was approached by the leader of Shi-Shen clan before with a proposal to gain a lot of money. The deal was for Lord Blackhand and his goons to raise a public spectacle at their concert and be purposefully defeated by them and only narrowly escaping so that the clan could use the fight to get promoted to B rank. Yet here he is, getting arrested. He believes he's been betrayed by Shi-Shen, and the deal was just a lie to draw him out. Refusing to take the deception, lying down, Lord Blackhand transforms into Hulk and sends the Shi-Shen clan flying. Thankfully, a brave E-rank hero Zhan Chen comes to the rescue with his high-powered reaction gloves capable of instantly killing an elephant. They end up rocketing him off the ground instead of blasting the villain, though. No wonder he's E-rank. This doesn't deter him, though, and he attacks Lord Blackhand with all of his different weapons, but none of them stick the landing. Despite being bloodied up, Zhan stays on his feet to buy time for Lin to run away because a hero's duty is to protect civilians. His selfless dedication stirs Lin, causing him to pull out a giant spike mace and deliver a lethal blow to Lord Blackhand. Stunned by his power, Zhan immediately tries to convince Lin to team up with him so that they can form the ultimate duo. At this moment, a famous C-rank superhero, Lady Winter Sorceress, arrives at the scene to investigate the incident. Lin uses the opportunity to slip away without Zhan noticing. He returns home to see his sister Wan dump her superhero boyfriend, Wenfeng Long, for her career. After the poor guy leaves, she fixates on her next victim, Lin. She asks him if he got any job leads, to which he has no answer. She starts yelling at him for being useless at working and taking care of the house when somebody appears at their main door. It's Zhan Chen. He introduces himself to Wan and tells her that if he partners with him, they'll solve his unemployment issue and he will receive a steady flow of good money. Hearing the promise of money, she immediately accepts the offer from Lin's side. The two happily talk over his future, without Lin's participation, who has given up resisting. The next morning, Zhan takes Lin to the Heroes Association to register him as a hero. He gives Lin a quick history lesson on the superheroes registration bill. It was passed 5 years ago worldwide after Zero went missing, and it mandates the registration and ranking of all superheroes from S rank all the way down to E rank. Many superheroes were opposed to the bill and left. Anyway, Lin has to pass an exam to qualify for registration. He passes if he lasts 3 minutes against the super jacked B-rank Mr. Atom. This isn't challenging enough for Lin, who decides he will defeat him in that time frame. Mr. Atom transforms his arms into what looks like giant crab claws, and Lin draws his mace. He dodges all of Atom's attacks and one-shots him. He's glad to ace the exam, but starts sweating bullets when he learns there's a written exam too. Ultimately, he scores only 13 out of 100 on the written exam, giving Zhan full license to call him a dumbass. They spot a group of giant men harassing a nerdy-looking skinny dude for apparently stealing their thunder. This squad, the D-rank Golden Triangle, is fighting a supervillain, but this tiny guy got in the way and arrested the culprit to prevent him from hurting even more people. However, this corrupt group doesn't want that because the culprit's future crimes will fuel their promotions. They try coercing him into resigning from the Heroes Association immediately, but he defends himself by saying they don't deserve to be heroes like Zero. They laugh at his outbursts and make fun of him and Zero. This strikes a nerve in both Jean and Lin, who demand they take their words against Zero back. Another hero, Spectre of Terror, also joins in. Despite him just being an E-rank hero, the Golden Triangle immediately gets terrified at the sight of him and runs away. After the bullies are gone, everyone introduces themselves. The glasses-wearing stick insect is Yan King, and the ominous E-rank hero asks to be called 13. 13 has no friends and copes with the loneliness by bonding with the magic girl characters in his phone games. He and Lin get along quickly for their common gaming interests, and Lin invites him to join their squad. He cries tears of happiness over this moment because he's never been invited into any team despite being an E-rank hero under the association for 5 years. He reveals his power is bringing misfortune to all those around him. Are you kidding me? His parents died when he was a very young age, and he was the 13th child at his orphanage. One day, the whole orphanage burnt down, and he was the sole survivor. He was relocated to another orphanage which got buried under a landfill shortly after. Every orphanage he moved into met some type of tragic end, eventually forcing him to live on the streets. One day, he was saved by Zero from a monster attack. Ever since then, he decided his dream was to become a valiant superhero like Zero, while saying that he punches a pillar to mimic Zero, but the pillar crumbles, causing the building's ceiling to fall down. Lin quickly reacts by saving a girl from a giant statue that would have toppled over her. Jen calls the ambulance while 13 and Lin save as many as they can. Unfortunately, Yan Qing, also known as Specs from now on, was buried under the rubble of the ceiling. Thankfully, he survives the incident and is taken to the hospital, where he is covered in bandages from head to toe. Specs is understandably scared and is opposed to 13 joining the squad, but Lin is adamant about sticking to his word and forces 13 to remain in the team. Sometime later, the newborn squad receives its first commission through an anonymous letter. The letter tells them about a highly organized crime ring of C-rank mercenaries involved in illegal trade. The squad surveils the group for a week, during which most of their members die from unfortunate accidents. I wonder why. With only a few members remaining, the squad moves on to the next phase of the plan. On the day of their most important sale, the squad catches them red-handed and places them under arrest for the illegal trade of bioweapons. Of course, the criminals won't go down without a fight. Specs dodges all their bullets and snatches away their guns with his teleportation power, and 13 tries to kill a green blob of a monster with a gun, but it doesn't work. Having run out of all their options, they start running away from the monster. Lin casually swings his mace at the monster, sending it flying directly into the city, where it immediately starts causing havoc. Lin catches up with it soon and demolishes it with his mace, spilling sewage water everywhere. I guess that's what it was made of. However, the monster still survives. John falls into its body while trying to attack it, causing its weak spot to be exposed. After that, he single-handedly defeats the monster, causing clear water to flood the street. The water apparently has purifying effects that clear up people's acting and perfectly clean the flooded shops. Due to this, civilians welcome the water and cheer for Jean, the MVP. It also saves a girl child from drowning in the water. Not knowing whose child she is, they bring the unconscious girl back to their base. After letting her refresh, Lin tries to ask her name, but she doesn't say anything and continues to sip her Capri-Sun. The Winter Sorceress, Miss Dong, comes over with information on the child in a pen drive. She tells them about the Gene Evolutionary Corporation that was established a few years ago. They're an inhumane organization that set up many charities to provide for homeless children, but have actually been using the charities as a front to obtain test subjects for their experiments. They have tested countless children by now, but this girl here is the only successful case. The thought of so many children dying in their hands and the Heroes Association not doing anything enrages Lin so much that his emotions go out of control and everybody in the room starts suffocating. After he regains his senses, Miss Dong explains that the association has done many raiders on the corporation, but the bad guys always seem to get away. Recently, she's been given the lead on investigating the corporation, leading her to discover they have a mole in the association. That mole is none other than the chairman of the Heroes Association, Aoyan Ru. She thinks it's only a matter of time before they come for her and the child. She advises them to stay on high alert for an attack from professional killers. Later that day, Lin employs the help of Big Sister Wan to get the child new clothes. She misunderstands the situation and assumes he and his squad have kidnapped a little girl, causing her to yell at him. He explains that they've rescued her since she has nowhere to go and that they've been taking good care of her, showing her the spicy crisps they fed her. Wan hugs the child and promises to buy her better clothes and feed her a nice meal. Lin asks her to go into the store without him and the guys since they have an errand to run. Once she's inside, they are faced by the Golden Triangle. You see, the reason they came outside was to draw out the ones assigned to hunt them. They go through a shady alley to talk. The Golden Triangle admits Chairman Aoyang has sent them to bring the squad in for questioning and that Miss Dong is now on the association's wanted list. Lin clearly states they won't comply, causing the Golden Triangle to use force. Unfortunately for them, Lin, Zhan, and Specs easily defeat them. With that out of the way, the boys rush back to the store for Wan, who's been waiting outside for ages. She and the kid get along very well, and since their shopping spree, she has given the girl a name, Moo Moo. Moo Moo happily flaunts her new outfit. Wan begs Lin to let her keep Moo Moo in their home. Although hesitant at first, he softens up and agrees. Over at the chairman's office, Aoyang panics over the Golden Triangle's botched mission. However, another man from the Gene Evolutionary Corporation reassures him that his underlings are already on the move and they should just sit back and relax. However, the female assassin that gets sent to Zhan's house gets so creeped out by the mannequin heads in his lab that she runs away without capturing him. Similarly, an A-rank assassin is assigned to retrieve Moo Moo from Lin's house. Lin detects him even before entering the house and confronts him. The assassin makes big talk about his abilities, but Lin shuts him up with a punch. Too prideful to fail in his task, he injects a chemical called Berserker's Serum, which instantly boosts his powers. He transforms into a massive hump with the powers of an S-rank and a practically immortal body. Even though Lin dismembers one of his arms, it grows back in a matter of seconds. He attacks Lin with a barrage of punches, but Lin dodges them all. Finally, Lin lands a single punch in the assassin's stomach, causing him to slide back and hit a tree. That one punch is enough to damage his body enough that it can't instantly heal. The salty assassin accepts defeat, but threatens to come for him and his sister Wan in the future, and will keep coming for them until he gets what he wants. This is the last straw for Lin, who has vowed never to let his loved ones get hurt. Despite the Heroes Association's rule against killing anyone, Lin brings his giant mace out and swings at the assassin so hard that half the hill they were standing on becomes past tense. He quickly returns home and pretends that everything is fine to Wan, who woke up from the noise. After she goes back to sleep, Lin takes out the pen drive Miss Dong gave him. He recalls what she said to them before. In 3 days' time, Chairman Aoyang will meet with the corporation. It will be the perfect opportunity to bring the chairman and the others from the association that are involved with the evil organization, but it won't be easy. It'll probably lead to the biggest fight the city has seen throughout history. 3 days pass and Lin's party and Miss Dong prepare for the corporation meeting later that night. Beating the bad guys won't be easy, so Miss Dong brings her sister Ice Fairy, an A-rank hero, and the Muscle Alliance, a group of, well, really muscular heroes. Their main goal is to obtain some of the Berserker's Serum as proof of their misconduct and grounds for arrest. Lin and Ice Fairy get off to a rough start because the A-rank hero belittles his squad, especially Specs, but Miss Dong urges them to cooperate. Thanks to 13, the corporation's Paradise Island headquarters has been destroyed, greatly increasing their likelihood of winning. They do a team huddle fit for heroes and get to work. Everybody's in their hiding positions to make a surprise attack on Aoyang and the corporation. However, the Muscle Alliance's Himbo heroes jump into action the moment the corporation's helicopter lands next to the waiting chairman. Wu Yang orders his thugs to attack the new company, while Mr. Gan from the corporation slips back into the helicopter and tries to escape. Unfortunately for him, Ice Fairy shoots the helicopter down with an ice attack, causing it to catch fire and explode. Somehow, Mr. Gan and his bodyguard, the female assassin from earlier, survive the crash. 3 bullets are shot at Ice Fairy, shattering her wings. Seeing that, Miss Dong realizes that Chairman Aoyang even has Hunter, a top-class A-rank marksman hero, under his wing. She takes on Aoyang while Lin and Zhan fight Mr. Gan and the assassin. Zhan has improved remarkably since his debut fight, expertly holding back the assassin's attacks with his polearm. She disappears into the dark forest for some time, but Zhan hears the direction of her movements and stops her stealth attack while also delivering a tough blow. However, he slowly loses momentum and control of the fight, and the assassin is inches away from killing him. She stabs him while saying something about heroes not existing in real life. Meanwhile, Specs checks on Ice Fairy, but she refuses to take his help. Hunter keeps shooting at them as she struggles to protect them with ice walls. One of the bullets breaks through the wall and sends her flying, but Specs catches her and carries her away to safety. He takes them atop a big tree branch and finally puts the glasses to good use by analyzing the bullet trajectories and pinpointing Hunter's location. He tells Ice Fairy where to shoot, successfully freezing Hunter. Just when they think they dispose of him, he reappears on a tree next to them and casts a force field on Ice Fairy, which imprisons her and suppresses her powers. Specs gets pushed off the branch and Hunter steps on his face to keep him down. Miss Dong also has a hard time with the chairman, who's sort of cheating by wearing body armor. She tries to get closer for close combat, but the chairman punches her in the gut, causing her to crumple to the ground. She tries to get back up, but he slams her to the ground again and grabs her by the throat. Things aren't looking good for any of the heroes except Lin, who manages to push Mr. Gan to his limits, forcing him to inject some performance-enhancing drug like the Berserker's Serum to continue fighting. Despite his new gains, Lin kicks Mr. Gan's ass in less than a minute. Meanwhile, Jean tries to appeal to the assassin before she kills him. He notices the sadness in her words and can tell she is only doing this work because she has no choice. He offers her a chance to live a new and better life if she spares him. She drops her blade and cries on his shoulder as if she was waiting her whole life for someone to say that to her. Hunter leaves Specs aside to deal with Ice Fairy first. However, Specs tries everything in his power to stop Hunter from touching her. Ice Fairy is forced to see him get beaten up and starts sobbing. It's only after he can no longer get up after getting beaten to a pulp does he stop trying to defeat Hunter. She finally snaps and breaks out of the force field, freezing Hunter inside a large cross and turning him into a death-flavored popsicle. She rushes to Specs' aid, holding him close and crying for him to wake up, but he doesn't respond. Chairman Aoyang slowly chokes Miss Dong, threatening to kill her even if she's from the famous Dong family. She cuts him off by grabbing his arm and encasing him in Ice Lotus. He laughs, saying a move like that won't be enough to stop him. Little does he know it's to buy time for Lin to come. Sure enough, Lin makes a grand entrance and does a little swing of his mace that flings Aoyang several meters away. His body armor breaks, leaving him completely defenseless. He yanks out a Berserker's Serum and injects it in himself, immediately upgrading to S level. His body grows spines that he uses as projectiles to attack Lin first. Only a crater remains after the attack. Thinking he's killed Lin, he does the same thing with Miss Dong, but Lin protects her from the spines by blocking them with his giant mace. The chairman tries to form a wall of spines, but Lin destroys it like a house of cards and hits him. He tries to defeat him with martial arts, but Lin dodges them all with his superior reflexes. Eventually, Lin grabs the chairman's arm, swings him around in a circle, and launches him into the air. Lin follows upward and strikes him down with the mace so hard that a small explosion occurs in the sky. Chairman Ouyang falls to the ground, not dead, but in a coma that should last a few days according to Lin. Miss Dong praises his strength, saying she didn't know he was at par with S rank. A wounded Zhan emerges from the forests in the arms of the assassin that caused the injury. Lin and Zhan celebrate their victory before Zhan falls to the ground due to his pain. Miss Dong reassures the assassin that she will not be blamed because she didn't actually have anything to do with the corporation's misdeeds. The happiness ends abruptly when Ice Fairy comes in carrying Specs on her back, who is completely unconscious. Luckily, both Zhan and Specs are taken to the hospital in time to be saved, but the road to complete recovery is still a long way. Ice Fairy takes time out to feed and nurse Specs as a token of gratitude for saving her life. When everyone's in the hospital room, Miss Dong tells them she's discussed with the Heroes Association to arrange special training for them to improve their skills. All of them jump the opportunity except for Lin, who turns down the offer, saying he's already strong enough. This shocks everyone, especially Ice Fairy, who shames him for thinking he has no room for improvement. He challenges to fight them all at once to prove his point. Everybody, including the injured Specs and Zhan, gets on the hospital's rooftop to fight. Miss Dong, Ice Fairy, Zhan, and the assassin charge in at the same time, but Lin dodges them all. Ice Fairy continues to go on the offensive, like he blocks all of her hits and lands a punch on her with so much force that it sends her flying. The assassin catches her before she falls off the roof. Miss Dong uses her ice powers to trap him, but doesn't last long as he breaks through the ice and punches her too. The assassin tries a stealthy attack, but he kicks her aside. With all three girls down, he looks around for Zhan, only to find him trying to secretly crawl away from the fight. He gives him a few slaps just for the hell of it, and then leaves. Later, he returns home after picking Moo up. The same guy who beat up a bunch of superheroes proceeds to get beaten up by Wan for bringing a dog back home with them. Moo found the puppy on the streets and begged to take it home. She and the pup make adorable puppy dog faces that Wan can't possibly say no to. In the end, she's the one who has to take care of the dog. One day, while walking the dog, she notices a fancy car parked outside the research lab she works in. Curious, she tries to enter the lab, but her supervisor, Dr. Qin, quickly turns her away by saying he doesn't need her assistance today. In reality, this is because he has secret guests, an old man called President Aoyang and a now crippled Chairman Aoyang. Dr. Qin tells the old man that Aoyang's brain damage is too far gone for recovery to be possible. Hearing that, the old man kills the chairman with a wave of his hand. After that, he leaves the lab, saying he'll be back again for Dr. Qin's research. However, the other side of the exit is blocked by Yang Dong, Miss Dong's brother. He pays his respects to President Ao Yang, revealing that even the Dong family is involved in the corruption. After the president leaves, Yang asks for a little boost, but Dr. Qin doesn't have whatever he's come here for, explaining that he's understaffed and has difficult time constraints. Expecting this, Yang introduces Dr. Qin to a new helper, Dr. Musili. Dr. Qin tries to resist, but Yang shuts him down and leaves. Over at the Heroes Association, Lin's squad comes back from their first rigorous training session. While recounting the exercises to Lin, the long-haired leader of Shai Shin clan approaches them and begs to be a part of their squad. Even though nobody really agrees, he slithers his way in. Suddenly, they hear clapping ahead of them. Yang walks across the stage with 2 bodyguards beside him. He stands behind the podium and introduces himself as the new chairman of the Heroes Association. He makes some empty promises to improve the association and exits the stage while the audience gives another round of applause. Backstage, Miss Dong approaches him to ask him when she'll be made to go back home. He grabs her by force and threatens her not to get her new friends to help her escape. After that, Lin, Zhan, and Specs enter the room and Yang thanks them for taking care of her sister. He praises Lin for taking down the Jin Corporation and Chairman Ao Yang by himself and invites him to work for the Dong family for a prosperous future. Lin firmly rejects the offer, after which Yang gives him a thinly veiled death threat if he dares to cross him. He coolly says Yang's people can't kill him even if they wanted to. Yang tries to make a power move by using mind control to force him to kneel. Everybody in the room kneels except Lin, who pushes Yang back with magic in retaliation. Yang puts the polite facade back on and tells them to leave. After exiting the building, Lin gets a call from Wan to pick up the dog from her lab. Dr. Musili enters the lab and asks her how her experiments went. She is happy to tell him they were a great success, and that the dog can now read and understand graduate-level reading materials. The doctor commends her for her excellent work and leaves. Right when she's left alone, her ex Wenfeng shows up outside the lab's window. She tells him to get lost because there's no chance of them getting back together. But he explains he's here to tell her to escape the lab because the Dong and Ao Yang clans are controlling it for evil agendas. However, hearing this only convinces her to stay and warn Dr. Qin. Despite trying to stop her, she refuses to listen and leaves. He immediately calls his family's Heaven Squad and orders them to take Wan to his home and keep her safe. While walking to the lab with Zhan to pick up the dog, Lin detects someone hiding in an alleyway. He confronts the stranger woman about why she was keeping watch on the lab and forces her to confess where her accomplices are. In total, the suspicious party consists of 4 people whom Lin and Zhan beat up together. Zhan finds a badge inside one of their pockets, revealing that they are part of the Long family's Heaven Squad. Lin is infuriated because he assumes Wenfeng sent these glorified goons to kidnap his sister for rejecting his advances and beats them up even more to send a warning. Wenfeng gets a call informing him that the hero squad has been wiped out and none of them can remember the culprit. He can only think of Yang Dong as capable of beating his squad full of A-rank heroes and thinks his plan was found out. When Lin and Zhan arrive at the lab, Lin gives Wan a pendant that she can press to alert him if she's ever in trouble. After that, they leave with the dog to go to Zhan's house. Meanwhile, 13 is on lookout for Miss Dong, who hasn't left her house for 2 full days. Suddenly, a car parks at the main entrance, out of which a blonde man and 4 bodyguards come out. 13 immediately relays the update to Lin. Miss Dong greets the man with a bow, referring to him as young master Zi Hao Ao Yang. He mentions their upcoming marriage, calling her his future wife. However, she openly shows her defiance against this forced arranged marriage, which results in him using violence against her. At that moment, the Muscle Alliance shows up to defend her. They are immediately surrounded by his bodyguards. Miss Dong tells them to leave because she is willingly marrying him. However, the tears in her eyes don't lie, and the Muscle Alliance collectively releases a magical burst to push the bodyguards back and square up with Zihao himself. 2 bodyguards come in between and transform into giant robots, which stand as indestructible walls while Zihao grabs and forces Miss Dong into the car. He forces her to watch as her rescuers are beaten to a pulp, but they are interrupted by a bullet that breaks through the car's window and would hit Zihao if he didn't catch it with his bare hands. The bullet was shot by 13, which reveals his location to Zihao. He throws the bullet back with the equal force of a gun, hitting 13. Miss Dong begs him for mercy, but he simply ignores her and drives them away to another location. Once they're gone, one of the robots comes to exterminate 13 with a laser beam, but thanks to his amazing luck, Lin arrives and saves his ass at the last second. Lin draws a flaming sword called the Fire Spirit Sword and cuts the robot in half. All the other robots rush in to face their new threat but get destroyed instantly. Zihao gets several alerts of all of his robots dying one after another. He frantically checks for live footage of the scene and sees Lin with his fire spirit sword, which Zai Hao recognizes as a divine artifact. Lin calls the ambulance for 13 and goes to Zhan's house to discuss his strategy for rescuing Miss Dong. Specs tries to convince them that facing the Aoyang clan is way above their league when Mr. Shi Shen enters the room and unhesitantly offers his help to save Miss Dong. Specs caves in from all their pressure and agrees to participate. The genius dog Toto and the assassin-turned-maid hack into the Aoyang system and obtain a map of their main residence. She assumes the engagement ceremony that will take place the next day will be in the ballroom. The plan is to send pretty boy Shi Shen to rally his fans to protest against Miss Dong's capture in front of the house to cause a distraction, while the others scale the walls and sneak in. Toto and the assassin will break into their security system and disable it. The next day, Miss Dong waits in her room with her wedding dress on. Her sister, Ice Fairy, asks if she's really okay with this marriage, to which she replies it doesn't matter what she feels because it is to keep the peace between the two families. Zai Hao and a guy named Shang Shuai enter the room. Ice Fairy happily greets Shang, who she appears to fancy, and Miss Dong asks her to leave with him. She hesitantly agrees and warns Zai Hao against bullying her older sister before leaving. Once they're alone, Zai Hao tries to force Miss Dong to give information about Lin because he wants to acquire the fire spirit sword. Meanwhile, the boys' plan works. Lin, Zhan, and Specs scale the walls and enter the premises. They wear cloaks to disguise themselves, with Lin going the extra mile by covering his face with a mask and bringing another weapon. Ice Fairy spots them and demands the intruders reveal their identities. Specs immediately lowers his cape to show himself and gets jealous to see her with Shang. While lecturing her about being cautious with talking to boys, Zhan and Lin proceed to infiltrate the house. They find the room Miss Dong is being kept in, and Zhan takes care of the two guards so Lin can enter the room. Once inside, he tries to rush her into escaping with him, but she strongly resists because she doesn't want any more people to get hurt because of her. He promises no one will be hurt under his watch and tears the room's wall down with his spear to prove a point. Finally, Miss Dong holds his hand and agrees to leave. They try to escape through the garden, but Zhan gets found out by the giant bodyguards. Zai Hao confronts them and shames Miss Dong for running away with another man. Lin challenges him to a fight. They make a deal that if Lin loses, he will back down and give his fire spirit sword to Zai Hao. They all gather at the arena to resolve everything once and for all. Even Ice Fairy shows up after finding out about everything from Specs. The leaders of both the Aoyang and Dong families are in attendance. Lin uses a spear as his weapon of choice, and Zai Hao chooses his bare fists. Big mistake. Zai Hao doesn't land a single blow and is eventually beaten by Lin. Of course, he doesn't admit defeat so easily and tries to put up another fight, but a single punch puts him out of commission. Lin decides to be a little extra and uses the spear's true power to summon a dragon. Despite another defeat, Zai Hao doesn't want to back down until one of them dies. He brings out a magic scroll and unravels it. The old master Aoyang gets alarmed to see the scroll and immediately evacuates the others from the arena before the scroll unleashes a mini-nuclear explosion that completely obliterates the ground. Miss Dong and Ice Fairy run back to the ruined arena to find Zhan and Specs still alive. Zai Hao floats above them, surrounded by a purple aura with a Super Saiyan type of look. Lin emerges through the dust with barely a scratch and attacks Zai Hao with one final dragon to take him down. Miss Dong happily runs toward Lin to hug him, but something stops her in her tracks and she falls to her knees. Everyone else kneels down as well and falls into a trance by mind control except Lin. Suddenly, a bald man with a funny skin-tight suit appears in the sky, like a cheap version of Saitama. He proclaims himself as a new god and tries to force Lin to kneel as well, but he cannot penetrate his mind. Frustrated, the god tries to crush him with rocks, but Lin dodges them and fights the wanted god. Things go as usual until a Baldy says he'll send Lin to hell as he did his sister. Having discovered that this man killed his sister, Lin gets engulfed in fury and takes on the form of his past self. The OG superhero shrouded in Cloak Zero. Zero throws him around for a while, even taking him on a round trip to the moon, until they return to the arena. The bald god lies on the wasted ground and finally returns to his senses. He reveals he is Yang Dong, who idolized Zero from a very young age and strived to become the one to eradicate all crime and sin from humanity. However, on the path to becoming the strongest, he lost sight of his goal and became the evilest of evil. Upon this revelation, he succumbs to all of Lin's attacks and vaporizes. Lin goes to his sister's lab to find it completely destroyed. Fortunately, Wan didn't even get a scratch from the disaster. Lin asks why she didn't press the pendant, to which she says she didn't want to get him into trouble. He makes her promise to call him if she ever runs into a dangerous situation again. Knowing his sister is safe, he goes to the beach to meet Miss Dong one last time. She has decided to move to M District to teach at the Heroes Academy. They bid a sweet farewell to each other, hoping to meet again someday. Lin retires as a hero for the second time to live a normal and peaceful life with his sister like he always wanted.